participation about agenda items as indicated on the agenda. If you would like to address the board, please fill out a yellow card on the table over there, give Mrs. Klein, before you speak.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on, consent agenda. Okay, receiving consent agenda includes minutes from June 5th, 2023, workshop minutes, June 5th, 2023, accounts payable claims, payroll claims and distribution summary report, donations, human resources report, and conference requests.
A motion to approve as presented.
Second. Motion to approve by Mr. Miller, second by Mrs. Towner. All in favor, say yes.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry. Opposed? Nay. Okay, 4.1, STEM integration grant. Dr. Lisa Kendall.
Yes. So board, I'm here this evening to update you on another grant we've received related to our STEM programming in the district. So just to give you a little bit of oversight, over the last few years, we've received a STEM acceleration grant. We've received 2 3E, which stands for Explore, Engage, Experience. One dealing supporting our programming in biomedical, the other one in advanced manufacturing, and that's one that we partnered with other schools in the county. And then we have this one. So I say all of that so that you understand that, there's science and then there's STEM. And so this is all feeding specific exploratory opportunities for our students outside of the science class or the science content area. So with that being said, what we plan to do with this is continue to build our K-8 programming. So right now, all of our elementary students have an hour of STEM, at least an hour of STEM once a week. Then our intermediate students have access to STEM within a special within their school day. And then our junior high specifically, we're targeting pre-manufacturing and pre-engineering. So with that being said, the state implemented new STEM standards, so this will help us then acclimate to those standards and get those teachers' professional development to support our students and continue on this inquiry-based learning models, like real-world problem solving.
Can I add?
Please do.
One of the things that Lisa mentioned the previous grants, but those have helped fund Project Lead the Way program in all the schools. And recently, all 4 of our elementary schools were identified as exemplary and distinguished schools of Project Lead the Way. So happy about what's happening there. It's not cheap. A lot of materials and things come with Project Lead the Way programming, and so some of the grant money also helps pay for some of that. So.
We just wanted to update you guys on that grant. We just received.
Any other questions?
Dr. Campbell should be complimented for all of her hard work on all this too.
It's a team effort.
Is it a 1-year grant, 2-year, or?
It's a little over a year, but the coaching will start this summer, it'll go all next year, and then into next summer as well. So, and yeah,
Okay.
it's a little over a year.
Are you asking that question because you're wondering about paying for it after the grant?
I didn't know if it was gonna renew if there was another grant.
Yeah. Well, and one other piece we're waiting to hear on is, textbook fees have been eliminated, but, one thing that would happen with textbook fees too, or we were allowed to pay some consumable fees with some of that. We're still waiting on guidance from the state on whether or not, we're gonna be able to collect, or whether they're gonna, if that's reimbursable from the state with their new program. So beyond next year, there's still some question marks on how that shapes out, so.
Any other questions?
Okay. 4.2, 8.2, student climate survey and safety results.
So this is a follow-up from our discussions during the last meeting and wanting to specifically lay out what the safety results were by grade level. Oh, good. I got it to work. So anywho, so if we remember the categories, so we're specifically looking at safety. So one of the things we want to make sure is that people understand that oftentimes our elementary students feel in a better place than our older students, and this is going to define what that looks like. And so before I jump into this, I want to make sure to reiterate the fact that last week we had an administrative retreat. And in that retreat, the administrators started to work on their building improvement plans. And one of the goals we're going to focus on is attendance. And so you might think, well, school safety attendance, what is that? What is the correlation? And so when you break down, attendance isn't necessarily the behavior you're concerned about. It's what's leading to the fact that students might not be coming to school and doesn't relate to safety. So they're in the midst of making quite comprehensive school goals. And so one of the things they did is they looked at the safety data and what their students were saying through the data to acknowledge the fact that these facets might be places where we work on improving atmosphere that students are more inclined to come to school on a regular basis. So what you see here is our K-4 level, and so you can see it by building the way that the students rated safety. And so one thing as I flip through these, I want you to focus in on is the 4.1. So the highest that you can achieve is a 5. So that would mean everyone's safe 100%, feels safe 100% of the time. So as I click here, oh, there it goes. All right, so this is CIS. So when you compare CIS to the elementary schools, that feeling, that perceived feel of how students are working through the school day isn't necessarily as strong as it was in the K-4 level. And the main differences that you're going to see there is how students feel about unsafe behavior over there on the bottom left-hand corner versus another place to look is how students are to one another. So as you continue through, then you jump to the junior high. So this is the lowest area within the district that needs the most work. And again, looking at those attendance goals and breaking it down to how they feel within the building and how that relates to something that we are working towards. And then finally, the high school. So that goes up slightly, not significantly. So there's definitely work to be done. And I would come here in front of you today and say, this is boom, 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 what they're going to do, but they literally just sat down and started drafting those plans. So they'll have a better idea as we continue to work through this summer. Questions about this data?
So, is my understanding that currently the plan is to basically keep track of attendance numbers to basically let us know what we see here. I basically verify what we see in it, and that's where we're at with this, or?
No, what I'm saying, so what I was trying to get at is where we are digging into the data. So attendance isn't going to be the measure that we use for this, but that's where you start because students want to belong, students want to come to school. So what are the things? So we're telling, this is telling me that, students aren't respectful to one another. So what can we be doing to cause them to be more respectful? And so attendance would be the bigger measure, but we're still going to be diving down into this. I just wanted to show that backwards, playing on how that data came alive.
We think this might be one reason why our attendance isn't as high as we want it to be.
Based on my anecdotal evidence, that's also one of the reasons why we're losing people in their way. So I guess my question is, what kind of sense of urgency is there about this, and what is our plan moving forward? Obviously, we've got 30-day, 90-day goals.
Mm-hmm.
What do we want to have achieved by the time my daughter goes to school? A couple months. What are we going to do?
So can I answer a little bit here? First of all, I do want to make sure there aren't any misconceptions about losing students to Middlebury. So we actually, that number has not been consistently growing. Our students leave. We've had the most growth outward would be to Elkhart Christian Academy. And so we just want to make sure people understand that. But we can use this same tool to measure. So if we want to know whether students feel like students are respecting each other, we can go right back and use the same tool. And so the measurement would be the same. We can ask that question every 6 weeks. We can ask that question every 12 weeks. But it's been measured by asking students how they feel. We will continue to ask students how they feel to make sure we're seeing improvement in that.
And then I guess goes back to the sense, like, what is our plan? So we got all that information, we've been asking it for 6 months, what are we gonna try to do with that information?
So that's what's being built right now by building, specifically by the routines and procedures that they have in place to make sure that students feel safe in school, because that's the fundamental reason why our students come. So that's what they're working on as we speak. Is it done yet? No, because we just started getting into the details this past week.
Is it possible we could come back and revisit this question?
You can revisit it as often as you want.
I would say it would make sense once the principals return in July, probably the beginning of August, before school starts, where they have that hammered out and can share those updates with you.
I think there's a couple, like when we talk about school safety in general, Lisa, and they gave the survey to have an understanding about how kids feel, because that's their sense of security and about how they feel coming to school. The other aspect as well is, are police doing audits? Are we following our safety plans? There's a lot of things that go into that too. And so I just want to make sure when we report back, we're reporting back on how kids feel, or are you wanting us to report back on our safety plans?
Well, I mean, plans and programs are good. I guess how kids are feeling is a good indicator. I'm seeing, I guess, kind of as I'm reading this, I see a culture problem that may go beyond anything that legislation or, we here in this boardroom can do anything with. And so that's why I want to keep looking at that problem, because I think at some point we may see that there are some things that we need to direct our focus to, as far as like, kids are respectful, I feel like kids are respectful, okay? You would expect, lower scores on that, but that's not what I see here. So I want to keep visiting this question because I'm smelling the cost of culture. So.
Absolutely. I would add, one thing I think that's continually challenging for us is a political climate that when we, Leader in Me is an example of a program that we use mostly K4, Oxbow and Eastside are the two schools that use that the most. And, when you look at, those are the two highest performing scores on the survey. And when you can talk to students about respect, about leadership, about these things, then we can, to your point, because you're asking us, what are we directly doing to improve this? Well, things like Leader in Me, things like capturing kids' hearts that we're working on at Southside are examples of ways that we talk to students about respecting one another, about classroom rules, the social contracts, or the classroom rules, the agreements they have with each other. So, we want to continue those programs because that's how you address that. In addition to, they need to feel safe. We have police officers, and we have safety plans. We practice procedures quite often so that they feel safe. We practice every kind of procedure so that they feel safe. When we're talking about how kids feel and respecting one another, a lot of that happens through those programs. And, especially recently, we get pushback on that. So we would love continued support from the board in those programs because I think that's a direct way that we improve those outcomes.
It would be certainly interesting moving forward, the kids who have gone through these programs and doing the same survey. I don't know how long we've been doing the Leader in Me, Mr.
Myers?
Mr. Myers, yes. I mean, you started that all the way back.
5 or 6 years.
Okay. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects those kids when they're in high school, junior high and high school numbers improve.
I'd love to see us do more social media education too, because a lot of it starts back and forth on social media. Unfortunately, people are giving kids phones too early. And a lot of that happens on social media. So, yeah.
So we will have an update for you in August.
Anything else on that topic? Okay. Continue.
Last item, seeking your approval for the in-school suspension structure day room supervisors for the junior high, intermediate, and high school.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion by Mr. McLuhan, second by Mrs. Towns. Questions? I think this sounds fabulous. It is like, you really thought it through, and what you're gonna do with the staff, there's nobody in there, we can do it. It seems like you've got all your bases. I was very impressed. We're not just throwing the kids in a room and saying, hey, somebody needs to keep an eye on and make sure that, they don't.
And being intentional about those,
Yeah.
the character skills the students need to be successful to remediate the issue that caused them to be there in the first place.
All those in favor say aye. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I point to consider enrollment school locator. This is here.
Good evening, board. So as you're familiar, our enrollment is now online, and we do that through our SIS called Power School. One of the products that Power School offers through that enrollment is this add-on that's called School Locator. What it does is when a family types in their home address, it tells them what elementary school they're assigned to. Now, it seems pretty simple, but there's a lot of confusion about that, and we get lots and lots of questions every year from families who are trying to enroll with us, because, school boundaries aren't always the most obvious. Now, we help them through the phone right now, and it goes pretty well, but they have this add-on, and we think it could be helpful in us knowing, having a better gauge of how many students are coming in from our neighborhood schools as well. So right now, families self-select which building they'd like to attend, and then we go back on the back end and kind of clean out, oh, you live in this building, that means we're going to school-to-school transfer you, and we do all that on the back end. This would help us know exactly how many kiddos we're getting from each neighborhood school. Good for our planning purposes, easier for families, because they don't have to try and guess which elementary building they're assigned to. I do want to mention, because of the issues we had with the registration process this year, Power School did agree to discount this a bit for us this year, so it'll be 20% less than we would have paid for it. Not a huge amount, but still a little bit helpful, and it's a good nod from them, and they recognize the issues that we went through and are working hard to earn our support going forward. So I just want to mention that, and then we'd like to request approval for a 1-year contract. Get it up and running, make sure everything's running swimmingly, and then look at whether we need to do these in the future.
Motion to approve as presented.
I'm second.
Motion by Mr. Yurus, second by Mr. Malloy. Any questions?
More of a comment, I know you keep trying to make it better and better, and this seems to be better, and sometimes realtors will give bad information to say you're going to this, so this helps, so.
Do we have a lot of kids who want to go to a different school than in the neighborhood for which they would be assigned from another? Is there a lot of the school transfer?
We do receive school-to-school transfer requests every year. Sometimes it's a staff member who is in a building, right,
That makes
with them. Sometimes it's, a sibling came through and they had a good experience there. It's not a huge number. I can get back to you exactly on what that is this year, but there are definitely requests every year.
Does that interfere with, the number of transfer students we're going to accept at each building?
So it does. So the first thing we do is we layer in-district students who are attending their neighborhood school, and then we layer in-district students who are requesting a school-to-school transfer. So they come before our transfer students who are coming from outside of the district. So those are important numbers, because that helps us determine exactly how many seats we have for transfers.
Anybody else? Comments, questions? Okay. Those opposed, the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Second. Excuse me. Those opposed? Okay. Now we're going to have what I call the meeting within the meeting. So we're going to have a project hearing on improvement projects. So I have rules for here. The next item on the agenda is for the board to hold a project hearing on the proposed project. If you are interested in speaking at this hearing, please make sure you sign the sign-in sheet over near Mrs. Warren. After presentation by the administration and its advisors, there will be an opportunity for the public to make comments about the project. At the hearing, we ask that each person limit their comments to 3 minutes and that the topic be limited to the proposed project under consideration. The notice of this hearing was published as legally required. And at this time, I'm going to ask that our school attorney, Mr. Randy Hessler, explain the purpose of this hearing.
Pursuant to Indiana code, before a school corporation can spend more than $1 million to build or repair or alter a school building that's going to be financed by a lease or a bonds, it has to hold a public hearing at which explanation of the value of the project, the school corporation, and community are given. The public hearing and consideration of resolutions is the beginning of the legal process. The resolutions, there's going to be 3 resolutions that will ask you to pass or consider, and I'll explain each of those as we get to them. But those passing those resolutions then will establish the financial terms for the proposed project.
Okay. So now we will hear from Mr. Foster.
Yeah, so Mr. Phillips and I are actually going to tag team this one a little bit, so I'll go ahead and move up here. So this one advances. Okay. All right, here we go. So as we look at potential facility projects in the district, these are the goals that we're looking at and considering. First is making sure that we have safe and healthy learning environments. So are the grounds safe? Are the classrooms safe? Are they healthy or not? Are we maintaining and ensuring the functionality of the current facilities? We have 7 school buildings that we want to make sure that we're taking care of. Improving operating efficiencies to help the operations fund. So utilities gets paid out of our operations fund. Are there construction projects, facility projects that can help improve efficiencies, such as LED lighting conversion, more efficient unit ventilators in classrooms would be examples of that. And then updates to our facilities as needed based on programming and such. So as we looked at the next year, the process that we go through, we look at previous facility studies. So the district has had facilities studies done previously. Barton Co. did facility studies prior to, I think, 2018. Schmidt Architects did another facility study or facility assessment just prior to July 1st when Jim and I got here. We also work with some consultants, TNP Architecture and Wygan Construction, to just assist with cost projections. And then also to look at things and just what are some value engineering sort of solutions we can do to things. And that's a new practice. The district typically had delivered construction through a general contractor mode, had worked solely with an architect in the design. We feel like we've benefited by involving contractors on the front end to come up with any value engineering ideas that they may have. So then we look at highest priority needs based on those facility goals I talked about for potential work. As you know, we lowered the debt service rate considerably. The total tax rate came down with when we lost the referendum. The board took another step and lowered the debt service rate last year, which currently sits at about 78.5 cents. And so look at highest priority needs, wanting to maintain that tax rate as well, and came up with some needs that Jeff will talk about here in a second. There he is. Tonight is our project hearing. It's not, nothing's finalized. We have a hearing to present the ideas. A final bond resolution would happen at the July board meeting. So I'm going to have Mr. Phillips talk about the needs for the projects.
All right. So first up will be Oxbow Elementary. So, you know, kind of a safety issue for quite a few years. I usually point at that. So right here at Town Road 45, if you've ever been there during student drop-off or few years ago, right along this edge, we tried to add an extra lane here just to get more cars off County Road 45 to try to make it safer. So that would be an issue. We would like to actually widen that and pave it. Currently, we just have gravel. It was kind of a temporary thing. Also, kind of right here is where we drop our special needs bus kind of drops off. And so we would look at maybe widening that, because right now the bus will pull in, they pretty much have to do a 3-point turnaround there. And if you actually go there, they kind of got into the grass a little bit. So maybe we can widen that and we can just do a loop, kind of like at junior high back in that area, going 5 over there. And then also we added an ADA ramp right here, but we probably could add another one maybe down here. So we would look at that as well. And then as far as the overall parking lot, we have, it's almost 3 acres of asphalt there. It's a lot of asphalt. On this side where the teachers park, we have some compaction issues. So we have crack filled and sealed that over the years, but we actually are, the architects are working to get this tested. They'll come out, they'll core drill all these areas. So, you know, this area may need to be all the way taken down and the subgrade replaced. The front, you know, you might only have to mill 2 inches and repave. So until we get into it and get more testing, we won't really know. Another thing when we do this is we'll probably have to add more lighting. They'll do a study for the lighting as well. The drainage at Oxbow is pretty good. This corner here is pretty bad, but the rest of it's not terrible. With this project, we would probably, you'll see on a later slide, we'll probably make because all this back here is asphalt. This is where the kids play. We'd probably make that an alternate. It's in decent shape. There's a drain in the back corner that we might need to rework, but we can maybe save some money and not have to replace that. So that would be Oxbow. The next slide.
One thing
Back up. Did you
I forgot to put east side, that's east side, yes.
go back to east side? So east side, if you've been there, same thing, right? County Road 13 is backed up forever. So a couple of years ago, Concord PD worked with the county, and we added this temporary lane to the north, and that's helped a lot. We've been able to get a lot of cars off of 13. But currently, what happens is the kids, the parents will come in. There's a fence here, and there's 2 gates. So we have to open the gate every morning. They'll come around, park here, and let the kids out. And so when we look at this, for one, the parking lot's in terrible shape. But 2, we'd like to remove this portable, and then Shad would like to extend this fence, and then this part here could maybe be the asphalt playground. And then you can actually connect the mulched area where the playground equipment is to the building, and the kids aren't dragging dirt in and out every single day because you can't get grass to grow here and constantly bring dirt in. So, and then it just makes it more safe, right? And so that would be kind of the thing there. But again, we got to get into testing. And we would talk more with Concord PD and principals to, you know, talk about workflow, traffic flow, how we would do that. And again, probably have to add more lighting, a little dim. There's no lighting on this since it's just temporary. And again, we would look at ADA issues where we need to add ramps and things like that. And then the last project, you probably can see the problem we have here. So it's pretty obvious from Google Maps or Google Earth. So our JV field here sits higher. What happens is as the water runs off, it'll come down into here. And there's just a really small 4-inch drain here that's just not big enough. And then so it doesn't carry the water. And so it's supposed to run underneath here. The pipe's actually cracked right there. So there's always looks like a big wet spot. But when the architects came out about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they believe the biggest issue here is all the water coming off. And it's just not, this isn't, you know, it needs to be reworked, excavated a little bit. So we would try to, you know, disperse the water from minute management. We would try to level the fields out, fix any drain pipes we need. That would be the main issue at softball. For years, it's been like this. And so if you can actually see, we have a big pile of dirt down here where we're constantly having to bring more dirt onto the fields. So we actually want to fix it. Another little thing is if you've been out to the games, you'll notice right in here where the concession stand there is no safety net. So when there's a foul ball, you just gotta, you know, recover. So we would like to maybe add some safety net in there as well. Again, it just depends on where some of the testing comes in and what the estimated cost of that would be. So that's kind of the three main projects, and then I think Dan is probably gonna talk next slide about.
Sure.
Some.
Will you go ahead and throw Oxbow back up there so I can, so one of the, we don't know, where bids will come in at. We work with YDN to get some preliminary information, but, pricing when you go to bid things is just a little hairy right now. So depending on where those would come, some alternate ideas we have, if money allows, would be to do the playground area. Jeff mentioned that a little bit, but we would probably list that as an alternate, to pay that area. And then, make sure I'm using the right thing here. One of the things the general obligation bond allows us to do, would be to, incur some costs that typically would show up in operations, because we're, impacted by the circuit breaker like we are. One use we have used in the past for general obligation bonds would be bus replacement. So if funds allowed, that could be a potential alternate. And then one of the major needs at Oxbow is going to be boiler replacement as well. We did the west side boiler replacement project, which came in at a little over 500,000 this past summer, and so that would be a big dollar item that if we had money for, it would be nice to do as well. And so, wrong one. Timeline, if the board decides to move forward at the July meeting, we would sell bonds in September. We would hope to bid the softball project in the fall. Again, architects would get involved, those specs would come to you before bidding, but we would hope to be able to turn that around by the fall. It's a big need, softball, they lose games in the spring because the conditions are so bad. And so we'd like to do that as soon as we could. And then we would look at bidding the parking lot work in the winter of 23, 24, so December, January, and with construction hopefully in the summer of 24. I don't know, contractors are slowing down and more available than they were 12 months ago, but that's the hope. So that's it for us.
So now we're going to hear from Baker Tilly. There are municipal advisors that Brock Boucher is going to join us virtually on the screen. Hello.
Hey, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, thumbs up. I like it. Appreciate the opportunity to join you all this evening virtually. Appreciate Dan and Jim and their flexibility. So good evening. As you mentioned, my name is Brock Boucher with firm Baker Tilly. We serve as financial advisors to Concord Schools and have been working with Jim and Dan for extended period of time and bringing you some options for this evening. So I do want to mention one thing. We serve completely in an advisory capacity, as you all know. So I'm not here to buy or sell your bonds, completely advisory, and not here to try to buy or sell anything on your behalf. I'm going to project a presentation here in a moment, but I think the three main things are we're going to review debt. We are going to look at the project parameters, then look back and how this project could fit within the overall debt management plan going forward. So bear with me as I share my screen here. I gotta say, bear with me, sorry. That's not it. Is that coming up for everyone?
No.
Nope. Let me try again. There we go. Just takes me a minute. Sorry about that. Everybody see okay now?
Yep.
All right, great, thank you. So first things first, as I mentioned, we're going to review existing debt for Concord Schools as of today. And for the visual learners in the crowd, you can see as of today, we have 6 bonds outstanding. We are currently in budget year 2023. So you can see we have our highest amount of debt in 2023. And with the 2022 GEO bonds, this color here in green, paid off at the end of this budget year, we have a nice opportunity to fill in 2024 debt without increasing the projected tax rate to taxpayers. What I'll say overall about the debt management plan, this board has pragmatically managed its debt. So we're in a really nice predicament as all debt matures by the end of budget year 2031. And independent rating agencies would view this very favorably, as they would consider to have a favorable, an accelerated debt repayment plan. So really nice position, both in the short term and long term for Concord Schools, as you heard the presentation from Dan here shortly ago, to tackle a lot of projects here, not only in 2023, but beyond. So this is the graph again as of today. For those who like to see the numbers behind the graph, same information as the prior slide. We have 6 securities outstanding. The 2023 debt service tax rate is right around 78 cents in 2023, and our target is to maintain something around that 78 cents here in 2024 as part of this overall plan. You can see here about 12.2 million is the budgeted amount for 2023, and we increased by about 3.4 million as of today in our budget year 2024. And we'll look at how the proposed bonds for 2023 fit within this overall plan. So you'll hear me mention, you've heard Dan mention general obligation bonds. In the state of Indiana, general obligation bonds have a statutory limit on how much debt you can have outstanding. And after Concord Schools makes its June 30th, 2023 payments, based upon the 2023 net assessed value, the formula in the state of Indiana is net assessed value divided by 3, multiplied by 2%, gets you a GEO capacity amount. We have a couple of GEO bonds already outstanding as of July 17th. So as of July 17th, 2023, again, after we make our June 30th payments, about $3.85 million of GEO capacity. Now, I do want to mention that this is not the limit, the amount of debt that Concord Schools can have outstanding. It's just the limit to the amount of GEO bonds that can be outstanding as of July 17th. Now, what is really nice about GEO bonds is that you can structure them how you want to in order to maintain a targeted tax rate. They're backed by what's called the full faith and credit of the school corporation to repay bondholders. And what bondholders like about it is it's a very risk-averse type of investment. So these bonds are purchased at tax-exempt rates, lower than what you may pay on your own home mortgage. But overall, a really risk-averse investment to investors for the proposed options this evening. So now looking at the projects and how the funding may work this fall. So as part of the project parameters you'll see in the proposed documents, the max borrowing amount is $3.5 million. We have structured these to be able to pay them off within 1 year. So we're going to get in and out of the market with these bonds without jeopardizing future flexibility. The assumed interest rates are 5.5%. Now, if we sold these bonds today, we'd probably get somewhere in the range of 3.5% to 4%. The Fed paused at the most recent meeting. I would say at this point, there's low probability for interest rates to go up. However, we're setting a maximum parameter this evening. That's why you'll see a proposed max interest rate of 5.5% in the event that the Fed does pivot and start increasing interest rates again if inflation does continue to go up. So it's building in some flexibility related to this specific bond issue in order to be conservative. So what we're estimating is based upon that 5.5% interest rate, $191,000 of interest for this 1 year repayment. And as you all know, perhaps with your own home mortgage, that there are some cost of issuance. So there are banker's fees, attorney fees, our fee, rating agent fees, there are other paying agent fees. So estimating very conservatively at this point, based upon $3.5 million issuance, once you take out all the professional fees, there would be an estimated $3.33 million available for construction. Most importantly though, for the tax rate purposes, the max tax rate and parameters for this one payment is about 22 cents. But I think what we want everyone to walk away with is this bottom row here, that based upon the 2022 bonds maturing at the end of 2023, we're able to structure these with no increase to the debt service tax rate in 2024. So those are a highlight of what's in the project parameters for your consideration this evening. I think probably most importantly, if you don't listen to anything else, if you can draw your attention to the charcoal bar graph, that represents the information you already saw on slides 3 and 4. And this purple payment here is that 1-year repayment for the proposed 2023 GO bonds. So again, we're getting in and out of the market and still keeping flexibility to consider bonds again as early as 2024 if this board chooses to pursue. This line graph represents the estimated debt service tax rate going forward. You heard me say that the 2023 debt service tax rate is about 78 cents. We're able to maintain that with this proposed financing. And what we did is we assumed 2% net assessed value growth. So even with a really conservative figure on 2% AV growth, we can still fit this in without a tax rate impact going forward, and also assuming really conservatively on the interest rate. So if we get higher than 2% net assessed value growth, that could mean that there actually would be a slight drop in the debt service fund. So we built these as conservatively as possible in order to maintain the debt service tax rate, but we'll see how net assessed value comes out with recent legislative changes by the time we sell bonds. So we expect to receive net assessed value for 2024 by August 1st. That will give us more indication on where we expect to be post-sale once we issue the bonds sometime around, current plan around mid-September. For those who like to see the numbers behind the graph, it's here in the supplemental information. And again, 2.2 million estimated, is the 2023 debt service max payments. And you can see with a slight increase in 2024, but with that net assessed value growth, we're expected to maintain a 78-cent debt service tax rate in 2024 and still keep future flexibility. So all in all, a really nice position to be in order to give yourself some flexibility to pursue and fund these projects. With that, I'll stop talking and welcome questions.
Thank you, Brock, for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, now we will open the public hearing. Remember, if you would like to speak, please fill out a yellow card, which is located next to Mrs. Warren. And I mentioned earlier, you have to put your name, your address, and you can speak for us. Okay, so what was I talking about? Okay. Mr. Hesser, could you please summarize the project resolution? Did I do something else?
You hear anybody?
Oh, I didn't have yellow cards.
Pause. If anyone wants to speak.
Oh, okay. Does anybody want to speak? I thought because we didn't have a yellow card, I would say that, so okay.
All right, so hearing none, there are 3 resolutions. The first one is the project resolution, and the project resolution is required when the school is planning to spend more than $1 million per building. It contains estimated hard and soft costs, as Brock mentioned, and the cost of the issuance, and establishes the total cost of the project. It also contains the estimated tax impact. So
So can I have a motion and a second to adopt the project resolution?
Motion to approve as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion from Mr. Yoder, second by Mrs. Town. Any discussion, questions for Mr. Butler? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Okay, the next one is the preliminary bond resolution, so having just approved the project, now you can talk about how you're gonna pay for it by borrowing. And so this resolution is the first step in issuing the general obligation bonds. It contains the expected maximum financial terms of the bond. Again, as Ms. Crowder indicated, these are maximum terms. So if, if we're lucky, they come in lower and at a lower cost, but we'll bring the final bond resolution will be brought back and we have talked about it the next set of hearings next month's board meeting. But now this is the preliminary bond resolution.
Can I have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve is presented.
Motion by Mrs. Towner, second by Mr. Wood. Any questions, discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Okay, and then the next one is the reimbursement resolution. And this relates to the financing of the construction project. The resolution permits the school corporation to reimburse itself from the bond proceeds for any cash that it might spend on the project prior to the closing on the bonds. It's required by federal tax law in order to preserve the school corporation's ability to reimburse itself for those expenses.
Can I hear the motion and a second to adopt the reimbursement resolution?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mooney, second by Mr. Yoder. Any questions or discussion?
You had mentioned bus replacement, where does that fit in with those?
Well, the reimbursement resolution would come into play if the board decides to move forward. And let's say in September is the sale, we don't actually receive the revenue from that sale until approximately a month or so later. So if we were able to maybe get some work done on the softball field ahead of receiving that money in October,
Got it.
we could reimburse. We would probably use the referendum fund or some fund to pay for it up front, and then those bond proceeds could reimburse the district.
Got it. Thank you.
You did something similar. So in the 2022 general obligation bonds, the board passed a reimbursement resolution with that. One thing we did on that was we went back and were able to pay for some buses we had bought that was an original outlay of the district, probably out of referendum. I'm not sure where we what originally paid for that, but we were able to reimburse the district as a part of that reimbursement resolution we did this a year ago.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Mr. Butler.
Roll.
7.4, consider Baker Tilly engagement letter. Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. We just heard from one of the representatives of Baker Tilly, Mr. Boucher. And part of what they do is they advise us, provide information, presentations, do some number crunching behind the scenes to help us make decisions to move forward with bonds. Baker Tilly also does other things for us, and that is what we'd be asking the board to approve tonight would be to engage their services to do not only the advisory services like what Brock did this evening, but we also have to arbitrage, monitor, still to make it so we have to provide documentation to the government that we're not making money on this $3.5 million. We're not investing that and not spending it on projects, but investing it and just making money off that. So they do reports on a regular basis to the Internal Revenue Service, to provide documentation that we're actually spending the money on the project we said we were going to be spending the money on. They also do, each year, we're required to provide what's called continuing disclosure, which is providing information to all the bondholders through a Securities and Exchange Commission website that gives them an update on our financial situation, on our enrollment, on a number of other conditions to provide documentation that for the rest of the bonds that we're still making payments on, that we are not kind of in a row, we've got things under control, and we will continue to make payments as we have told the bondholders that we're going to do. So I would request that the board approve this engagement letter with Piccadilly, and I have to answer any questions. Again,
Motion to approve as presented.
Second. Motion by Mr. Hughes, second by Mrs. Towner. Any questions on our engagement letter? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. Mr. Evans, financial reports.
let's see if we can get it pulled up here. There we go. So the financial summary for the period ending, month ending, May 31, 2023, you can see here. Just a couple comments that I would like to make regarding the summary report. First of all, as you know, we transfer from the education fund to the operations fund several times during the year to offset the costs of what used to be general fund expenses that were transferred to the operations fund. So the first of those payments for 2023 was made in May of this year. So that is something that should be noted. Second thing I'll mention is, if you look at the health insurance, that number for the May 31, 2023 is low, and the reason that's lower than it should be is because for some reason, we're not sure yet, we're working with the bank on this. We made a deposit at the end of May, but the deposit was not posted until the first of each year. So a true balance would be, you could add about $148,507 to that number, which would be about a break even with where we were a year ago. So that number is correct, but it's not a true indication of the actual balance based on the funds that we received during the month of May. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. One other thing I wanted to kind of point out too is if you look at the referendum cash balance, the referendum cash balance May of this year, $5,090,348. That's the cash that we have in the bank right now. However, we have significant encumbrances against that. So even though that cash is there, it will be spent primarily on the two biggest expenses are going to be, we traditionally pay the career center bill, which is the bill that our students to go to Elkhart to the career center, we pay their tuition. And so that has come out of the referendum fund. In addition to that, we have money that's encumbered to pay for a certain amount of the devices that we purchased that will be distributed to students this fall. So part of the payment for those devices will come out of the referendum fund. It's right now the cash is sitting there, but it's encumbered and it will be spent at some point in the future. And then there's a couple smaller, I think there's some music expenses and maybe some athletic expenses as well that will come out of there that are not anything as significant as that. So I did want to bring that to your attention.
You won't see that Apple payment for the iPads come out for until 2025 or late 2024 because we're using ESSER funds. There's 4 payments. We're using ESSER funds while we're able to use ESSER funds. But we have encumbered, to Jim's point, we've planned and encumbered for that payment that'll happen, end of 24, 2025, so.
Which was part of the device plan that you all approved back in January.
I asked Jim to present that tonight because we look at that cash balance in the referendum and, oh, we've got $5 million. We actually have some things encumbered within that $5 million. So.
Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
Motion for Mrs. Townsend, second by Mr. Wheeler. Any more questions?
Mr. Evans, the food service 1.8 versus, is that what we would expect that to normally be? Because 2022 was just a weird year, so would we expect?
Well, between the 21-22 school year, where all the meals were free,
Yes.
that really kind of kicked that up a little bit. And then this last year, there was an additional supplement that was paid by the federal government for meals. That's going away the end of this month.
Okay.
So it will return to maybe a little bit more normal, but at the same time, we're watching that. We want to make sure that we're good stewards of those dollars and we're not wasting things in inventory and those kinds of things. So we would anticipate continuing to be able to not lose money.
Yeah.
Not make too much, but definitely not lose it.
We might have covered this earlier, I don't recall, but I see parentheses on the operations. What's going on there? Because I know we're not, negative balance in operations. What is the?
The general situation with operations is that's funded by local property taxes.
Sure.
And so those property taxes are paid in May. So we'll get basically 6 months worth of revenue at the end of this month. But it hasn't, we haven't gotten that payment yet. Sometime in the next week or two, well before the end of June. The 34th season. That's why that shows a negative. Yeah. So yeah, that would be and you'll see the same thing happen in the fall, because we'll spend that money and then we'll get the property tax payments in December.
Any more questions about financial reports for this reference? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay. Next, consider approval of NISC food bids.
Yes, thank you. The Education Service Center, Northern Indiana Education Service Center, is a group that goes out and does bidding for us for basically everything, all the food purchases, except for some of the smaller snack items and those kinds of things. But all of the food, the dairy, the bakery, all those kinds of things, they do the bidding for that, and then that board approves those bids, and then we bring those approvals back to you as a board to approve those bids that the Service Center has gone out and worked with other vendors to supply those particular bids. So the purpose would be to ask the board to approve the bids that were approved by the Northern Indiana Education Service Center for this year.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Dooley, second by Mrs. Town. Any questions about the NISC food bids? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign.
Thank you.
Right?
Right.
I'm gonna go ahead and use the pointer just because we got it out tonight, so.
Talk to us about board policy. Yeah.
Yeah, so, just a couple things. We had a first reading on this last meeting, didn't receive, any questions, but, I talked about this a little bit, so I want to highlight a couple things. So, First we make the statement here that, we're best served, we think our kids are best served, everybody's best served when our employees are in person. And so that will never change for schools. Might change for technology companies or whatever, but that will never change for schools. The other thing working is at the sole discretion of the corporation. And so, only when it's in the best interest of both parties would it be considered. And then can you scroll down? The district then, let's say we have, I'll talk about extraordinary circumstances, but at all times, even when it's not like a pandemic, the board, corporation retains the rights to change remote work arrangements for any employee at any time. So, for example, we had a trial of this with a data specialist who moved to Indianapolis. That's why this came forward. If for any reason that arrangement is not working out, the district has the right to revoke that agreement that we have with them. And then continuity of work, just their schedule won't change, their duties don't change. On the flip side, their compensation is not going to change, benefits or any other terms of their employment. And then they are expected to work during their normal work hours. They're supposed to be available as well. So if we need a video conference with them, phone call, the office phone is actually being sent to Indianapolis. And so it's a regular work day, just as if they were here. And then, they have to comply with all aspects of professionalism, even when they're at home too. So, all right. So that's it on that one. Any questions on it before you consider it? Okay.
Motion to approve is presented.
Sorry. Was there discussion about internet, high-speed expense, blah, blah?
Yeah, so if we're not incurring that cost right now, we would not incur that cost of a remote work arrangement.
That does.
Okay, somebody came here.
Anything else? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Both same sign. Okay. Awesome. Any sharing from the board this evening?
Other than I can't believe we're already 2 weeks in summer, I'm like, it's going fast.
Graduation was amazing.
It was.
Thank you to everybody who put that, Mrs. Bone, everybody who put that together. Always amazing. Despite the awful construction, that was probably the worst part. Okay. Sharing from Mr. Constant.
Yeah, so if anybody likes to golf, or if you just like to donate to causes, because many of us in here that day will be golfing that day, and we're terrible at golf. But July 13th is the Dollar for Scholars golf outing. This year, as an example, we had, I think 140 students apply for scholarships. At the end of the fundraising year for Dollars for Scholars, then the board determines how much scholarship money everybody gets, and there's pretty much a guarantee that if students meet the criteria, everybody gets a scholarship. And so a couple things on that. It's been $750 scholarship. It's been different amounts. This year we had some anonymous donors right before contribute a significant amount of money. So this year we were able to give everybody $1,000 scholarship who met the criteria. Kids do different things. Kids to be eligible have to work phone-a-thon. Kids have to participate in the fundraising, get some skin in the game, which is a really good thing. But one of our big revenue generators is the golf outing on July 13th. For a foursome, it's $500. There's also still opportunities for whole sponsorships. The whole sponsorship is $250. And so anybody watching out there on the video, We have room for more. I think we're maybe up to close to 30 teams, so we have room for 4 or 5 more teams. Want to thank our summer school, on another note, want to thank our summer school teachers who are wrapping up the elementaries this week. We've been holding summer school in each of the 4 elementary schools, which is different than what we've done in the past. Keeps the kids in their home elementary school, people they're familiar with. And the emphasis the last couple of weeks has just been on our goal of ensuring all kids read at high levels. And so it's been a literacy focus for the past couple of weeks. It's been mostly first and third graders, right, Mr. Myers, that have been participating. So thank our teachers for that. We finish up the school year and jump right into that. Want to thank our camp coordinators and our coaches. I don't know if you've seen on social media, but we have a camp for like every activity that we have here at Concord, and our high school coaches and volunteers and different folks step up and make that happen. We've had hundreds of kids participating, and then we're also going to have the performing arts ramping up here, and I'm going to start hearing them in my backyard here pretty soon. And there's just a lot of folks that participate in making sure that we have great opportunities for our kids here in the summer, and I think that leads to some great programs that we have. And then just last, we did, I think Dr. Kendall alluded to it, but we held a 2-day administrator planning session for 2 days last week, Monday and Tuesday. Spent those 2 days analyzing our student achievement data, discussing instruction and improvements to instruction, and then planning our school improvement efforts for next year. And so everybody worked hard the entire time. Thank them for that. We were also able to have our instructional coaches there. So we started the work of talking about our coaching cycles, talking about what we want our instructional coaches coaching for in the classroom for instruction. So that was time well spent. Many of those folks haven't really started with us technically yet, and we're still able to come last week, instructional coaches. So thank everybody for that. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but that's it for now.
We go over to our board meeting schedule.
Yes, I will. So we have our next meeting is going to be in July. We're going to do that here at the Education Center. That'll be at 4 o'clock here at the Education Center. Our next 2 meetings this summer will both be at 4, so July 17th, August 7th, both of those at 4 here at the Education Center. And then board, you have your workshop and some planning on Friday. That's it.
Thank you everyone for coming. You're always welcome in our meetings. And I look forward to seeing everybody next month at 4.
This is what you do again.
Adjourned. 7:08. Thanks everyone.